I'm Chloe Melas, an entertainment reporter for CNN based in New York. Shortly after my husband Brian and I met and got married, we decided that we wanted to move out to the suburbs. We found the perfect little town in southern Westchester, and we found this Tudor home. It was about 100 years old, and we immediately fell in love. We knew that this was the house for us. This is the house where we wanted to have our family and make our memories. When it came to safety, other than having smoke detectors and CO2 detectors, it wasn't something that my husband and I ever talked about. Even after we gave birth to our first child, Leo, again, we never talked about what happens if there's a fire, what happens if there's a natural disaster or a flood. What's our plan? Where do we go? Do we have all of our documents in a safe place? Honestly, it never even crossed our minds. So at this point, living in the home, we had been there for a few years. I had given birth to our second son, Luke, 6 months before. And here we are on a cold January night, and we were sitting in front of the fireplace, my husband and I. It was a second fireplace in the home, one that we had never used in all the years that we had lived in our house. We had just recently paid to get it all fixed up to code, so we thought. And we were in front of this roaring fire, getting warm, about to watch a movie. The kids were sleeping upstairs, and I happened to just look over and see some sticky smoke under one of our big floor lamps in our living room. Still, we were like, look, the smoke detectors aren't going off. This just must be an issue with the fireplace. The smoke's going to go away. Everything's going to be fine. But I had kind of this weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. So I asked my husband to go check on the baby's room. But when Brian went up the stairs, he decided to check on our toddler's room. And thank goodness that he did, because when he opened the door, he found Leo coughing and the room filled with smoke from floor to ceiling. And that's when the fire department said, you need to get out of the home right now. I had on no shoes. My kids had on just their pajamas. I didn't know where my dog was. I had no idea where my two cats were. It was about 8:30 at night, pitch black, freezing outside in a New York winter. It turned out that there was a fire raging behind our fireplace downstairs. So it was actually charring the wood, charring the walls, and there was a fire behind our children's walls. The fire chief took one look at us and said, Brian, if you had not gone into your son's room, this would be a very different weekend, that our children would have died from smoke inhalation. I probably would have gone up and gone to bed, and I probably would have succumbed to smoke inhalation as well. And then the house obviously would have caught on fire even more, and who knows what would have happened at this point. So that night, when we were allowed to come back inside for a few minutes, I looked around and the ceiling in the kitchen had collapsed due to all the water that the firemen had pumped into the home to put the fire out. I had about several inches of standing water all on the first floor. There was water pouring out of our AC ducts. My children's rooms were completely destroyed because they had to go in there with axes and rip apart the walls so that they could get to the fire. It was so sad. So after insurance sent their investigators out and they figured out what caused the fire, which was a faulty fireplace, we began that process of finding a contractor, starting to rebuild. And, there was a lot of paperwork and a lot of inventory and a lot of things that went into this process. But about a year later, we moved back into our house, and it is the home of our dreams. It's completely renovated. It's beautiful. We're so happy. Our son, Leo, who still remembers that night, is so happy to be back in his room. Something I'll always remember that the fire chief told me the night of our fire is that you can replace things. You cannot replace people. That has always stuck with me. And, I am so grateful for what I have. And even more so, we were just so grateful just to have each other. That's what mattered. I would encourage every single one of you watching this to please practice your 2-minute escape drill. Test your smoke alarms regularly. And for more information, please go to soundthealarm.org.